What's going on, guys? So it is an absolutely beautiful morning. Clouds are moving kind of fast actually, but it's not too windy out here yet. It is probably about, I'm guessing, 85 degrees out. It's probably going to be really hot by the midpoint of today. That said, I just wanted to come out here and talk to you about a few things. Got the Brookstone looking good out here. I have two of those little pest repellent, rodent repellent things in there now. I got one inside of the basement storage and I got one inside of the RV. Haven't had any rodents inside of there. Had a couple small spiders. We've sprayed for all of that, but I have not yet had one single rodent inside of the RV as long as we've been having the RV out here on the property, which is really nice. And there are rodents out here, so don't think that the property is just void of rodents. They're everywhere. There's mouse, there's rats, there's gophers, there's rabbits. I mean, I don't really consider rabbits to be rodents, but if you have a garden, you probably do. That said, they've been working out really well, so I definitely can't fault the function of those, because I do assume that I would have probably had some type of an issue with some rodent at some point. Haven't seen any droppings inside, haven't seen any, insulation or holes where they might have burrowed through. So far, everything's really good. Part of the maintenance I do on the RV out here, though, is I'm constantly spraying it. So I use permethrin. I spray the bottom of the frame. I spray the bottom of the slides. I go inside. I spray around the inside of the floor area, around the edges, basically anywhere that I think insects could get in. I know that doesn't treat for rodents, but it does definitely help kill and keep bugs out. So I've been very, very happy with that. We've had 2 RV trips that have been canceled recently, mainly because of problems with the brakes on the F450. And I know that a lot of you saw the video I shot in the F450 where the front right side or passenger side caliper froze up on me and it was overheating. Took it to the Ford dealership. They replaced it under the extended warranty that I have on the truck, and I still had the problem. And believe it or not, they replaced the wrong caliper. They actually replaced the driver's side caliper. The notes indicated that they saw issues with that caliper when in fact there were no issues with that caliper. So I get the truck back. I'm driving it for a while. They put new brakes on it. They turned the rotors and everything seemed to be a little bit better. And then all of a sudden I'm having a bad pulling to the right again. I take a little bit of water, just toss it on the rotor to see if it's hot. It steams off. Go to the driver's side, do the same thing, no problems. I get back there, take pictures of it, and find out that they replaced the wrong caliper. So it's back at the shop getting that fixed. And hopefully they fix it and I get the truck back, because we've missed 2 trips now because the truck was in the shop, and that's just not a good thing, especially when it's something as simple as brakes. I mean, I could have done the work myself, but I have an extended warranty on the truck, so I want to take advantage of it, especially because of the parts and the warranty aspect of it. We have a lot of progress that's going to happen today out here on the property. So you may have seen the slab back here in the corner. Slab's been poured. Not sure if I've posted the videos on prepping for the slab and getting it ready, because there's been so many delays. Many of those delays have been resolved now, hopefully. The building should be delivered today, and if it does get delivered, I'll probably take a picture after everything's set up and kind of positioned for the crew that's actually going to erect it, put it in place to come out and do so. 50 amp cable. I have that 100-foot 50 amp cable running to the side of the RV. That's been working really well. I've been able to run 1 AC unit inside of here, and the temperature has absolutely been maintained phenomenally just with 1 AC. And it actually cycles off, so it's not as if the thing just runs 24/7. It does a really good job of cooling down the RV. To kind of give you an idea, the outside temperature this morning is 83 degrees and it feels like 96, and it's 7:57 in the morning. It'll feel like 110, 115 later. The inside of the RV right now is probably at 82 degrees because that's what I have the AC set for. And like I said, it does a really good job of cooling down the RV, and I've been really happy with it. And that's just one 13.5 AC unit. So, these Brookstones are pretty dang efficient in terms of, heat transfer and keeping heat out or keeping cool air in, or vice versa. You can see right here, 82 degrees inside. And that's the temperature sensor that I have on the Simply Safe alarm system that's in the RV. Another thing I want to talk about today, though, is this bad boy right here. We've been getting a lot of use out of it. Actually, we initially got a lot of use out of it, and now anytime I use it, I use it for simple processes like moving stuff around. A lot of it's crushing down the stuff that we constantly load in the back of the Texas Pride dump trailer over there. So that right there is constantly this revolving door of filling it full of stuff, going, dumping it out, then refilling it, dumping it out, refilling it. It's been so dry lately, it's not really safe to light that stuff up and burn it, so that's the reason why we haven't. We just take it over to the landfill and drop it in the brush area. I've been using the excavator to do some additional plumbing, so we ran some additional plumbing lines out to the pond out there. I use that really cool fabricated bucket right there. My neighbor actually made for me. It's a trenching bucket, but it's specifically designed for trenching PVC and stuff like this. So this is what it looks like. It's held up really, really well. This is kind of one of those really interesting things that, you know, I'm typically really careful with everything I own. I don't want to damage things that I've paid money for. But you just learn pretty quickly that buckets are pretty dang tough, and you can grab them and move them around and do whatever you need to with them. He also fabricated this really, really cool butter bar that's attached to the front of the 36-inch bucket that we have, and that thing's been phenomenal. It just works really well. If I have to do any really deep digging, I can take it off by just simply unbolting the edges, and it just slides off the front of the teeth. But over here I have my 12-inch bucket, which is also a trenching bucket, really designed to be able to create long, deep trenches. But yeah, if I do any deep digging, I usually use that, so I don't have to take that off. But everything out here is sand, so again, I just don't have to worry too much about digging into it. The 50G John Deere has been working really well. Haven't had any issues. I know I made a video on this a while back, and I was talking about how, you know, when you look at specs and you look at the competition to this that's on the market, it can kind of make you a little bit curious, as if you made a poor purchasing decision. Basically, if you bought a unit that's underpowered and doesn't necessarily compete against a lot of the other units that are on the market. And now that I've had this for a while and I've been using it more and I've been getting accustomed to it, especially with the throttle cranked up and with it in higher speed modes like power mode versus economy, I'm actually really liking this thing. I'd venture to say I'm digging this thing, no pun intended. This thing has really been a good machine, and I think the biggest drawback to a machine like this, inevitably, and when I say like this, in this size category, is just the fact that it's a relatively small machine. It's not designed to compete against the big boys. It's not designed to do the things the bigger units are designed to do. So you're always going to have kind of a weight issue if you're trying to dig from the side, or if you're trying to carry, you know, huge amounts of dirt inside of the bucket and move it and extend it really far out. But for what we use this for, I'm glad I didn't go with a larger size unit. I know that was actually something I'd mentioned in a video. I kind of wished I had gone with like a 70 or an 80G, and maybe not the 50G. But now that I've had this longer and I've moved it a few times on my trailer, I'm glad I got this size. If I would have gotten anything bigger, it would have been wider, it would have been heavier, and it would have been more difficult to move around. This unit, I would venture to say, is actually a little bigger than I should have gotten. I probably should have gotten the 35G. That's a little narrower. That way it fit a little bit nicer in between the fenders on the trailer, and it would have been a little bit lighter, a little bit easier to move around. But this is probably the very largest machine that I would be comfortable with having on a piece of property like this, or just using as a non-commercial application. Again, only because the size of the machine. It's not a big machine, but it's certainly not a small machine. You know, I'm never going to be able to fit this in the backyard of a home. I'm never going to be able to really utilize this in an area that's really tight and confined because of how large it is. And when I say large, it's got a pretty dang decent footprint to it. I mean, the width from here to here, I'm going to venture to say, is about 7 feet. It's relatively long. You got that blade off the front that extends off of this area right here about 3 feet. You know, the overall length of the tracks in this area, just going to again venture to say, is probably about 8 feet. So this is not a lightweight machine. It is not a compact machine, even though it is a compact excavator. There are a lot of folks that will leave comments saying, you know, that thing's a toy. It's a baby. But the fact is, these things right here help build infrastructure all over the country, all over the world. People use these things for duties that you simply don't use larger machines for, because you can't fit them into certain places, and you can't put them in places that are weight restricted as well, and they're harder to move around. You need bigger trucks, bigger trailers. So every piece of construction equipment has its place, and this one certainly has its place. For a residential, for a consumer machine, this is way, way, way overkill. Again, I could have gone with something much smaller. Probably a 35G, the unit smaller than this, would have been the best application for me. It probably would have been the very best machine. And that might have even been a little larger than I absolutely needed. But I'll tell you, having the 36-inch bucket on the front, being able to lift large amounts of dirt in a single pass has definitely had its benefits. So that's really cool. And in the future, we're actually considering putting a pond up front. And the pond will probably be, dimensionally speaking, about 50 feet by 80 feet in size and probably about 8 feet deep. So if we build the pond up front, this thing is really going to come in handy, and I think it's the perfect size machine for me to be able to tackle a project like that on my own without needing to go out and rent a bunch of other equipment. So whenever we tackle that project, this thing's really gonna pay for itself. That's really where this product's gonna come in handy. But you know, as little as we use this compared to like a commercial operator, it's actually come in really handy. And the biggest task, again, we assigned for this is really crushing down everything that's inside of that dump trailer, and we don't have to be hauling the trailer out there as often, which is really nice. Again, I'm totally fine now with the power on this thing. Having an enclosed cab with AC is beautiful. It's magical. It is a wonderful thing, especially when you're working around sand, because you take one scoop of sand out here and you spin it around. If this was an open cab, all that sand would just blow back on you. All the bugs would get on you. It's pretty nasty. And, you know, for those of you who work with open cabbed equipment, tell me some experiences that you've had. I can venture to say that it's probably not been the greatest experience sometimes, especially when it's insanely hot outside, when it starts to rain or you start to have bad weather, or if you happen to be near a wasp nest, or you happen to be near something that can get into the cab whenever you're operating it. But I'd love to know. That said, just wanted to give you guys a couple updates. I'm going to be working out here today until the folks come with the building, and I'll try to capture some of that if it makes sense. But yeah, love the machine, been really happy with it. Again, probably bigger than I ever really needed for a machine like this, but it's been working out really good. So overall, I'm very pleased with this purchase, and I'm actually glad that when we got this was the one they had, because I feel now that if I would have gotten a smaller unit, even though it may have been better for me overall, I would have wished that I had the largest practical unit. And now that I've had this for over a year, I realize this is the largest practical unit that I should have ever gotten. So very happy with it. I am starting to like the fact that it's naturally aspirated versus turbocharged. That's a big one for me. It has a slightly larger diesel engine in it than some of its competitors, like Kubota and Bobcat and all of them. And those require turbos to produce more power than this, but they do it with a turbo, which is essentially a higher failure point on something like this than having something that operates at a slightly lower RPM but is naturally aspirated. At least that's the messages people have told me when using equipment like this. It's funny, the construction companies that have commented on my videos about this say that I have probably the very best compact excavator that you can have, and that always makes me feel good. It's always nice when you have someone that kind of reconfirms a purchasing decision you make, right? A third party, someone else who uses it, especially folks who use these in a commercial application. Yeah, but just wanted to give you guys a quick update on some stuff going on out here. That area back there where we put all of the seating and all of that has absolutely turned out to be one of the most popular places out here. The area that we put right around to the side of the house too, where we built that little Lowe's canopy, also turned out to be an absolutely beautiful spot. The grass looks gorgeous out here, except up front where it's kind of dry. But back here, because it's proximity to the pond, it's looking really good. Anyways, guys, I sure hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up. We'll talk to you again real soon.